Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we are unpacking a landmark criminal procedure case that is a strict must-know for anyone studying the law. It's a classic, it's dramatic, and most importantly, it lays down foundational rules that you are definitely going to be tested on. We're looking at the Supreme Court case of Teehankee Jr. v. Madayag, decided in 1992. So grab your digital highlighters because we're going to dissect this case digest style, making sure the core principles stick with you forever. Now, to get us started, I want you to imagine this scenario. An accused is arrested, the prosecutor files the information in court, the trial machinery is gearing up, and then a supervening event occurs. What happens when a victim tragically dies after the initial charges are already filed? Do you just scratch out the old charge and write in a new one? Do you have to start the whole investigation process all over again? This specific procedural dilemma is the exact twist that makes today's case absolutely crucial for your exams and your future practice. Okay, let's dive right into this structured case digest roadmap. We're going to cover the doctrine, the facts, the issue, and finally, the ruling. Section 1, the doctrine. We'll be looking at the hard line between amending and substituting an information. And this brilliantly illustrates the critical difference under Rule 110, Section 14. An amendment, well, that involves the same offense, or an offense that necessarily includes the original charge. Because the core crime is the same, no new preliminary investigation is needed. You keep the game in play, so to speak. Substitution, however, means charging a distinctly different offense. This completely resets the procedural board. The original information has to be dismissed, and a brand new preliminary investigation is required. Confusing these two can literally make or break a prosecution. Look, timing is everything in criminal procedure. If the prosecution wants to amend the information before the accused enters a plea, they have a ton of leeway. They can amend in form or in substance, and they don't even need the court's permission. No leave of court required. But the entry of a plea at arraignment is the critical point of no return. Once the accused pleads, the rules tighten up big time. After the plea, only formal amendments are allowed. You now need leave of court, and, most importantly, the amendment must not prejudice the rights of the accused. So, if we can only make formal amendments after a plea, we really need to know what a substantial amendment is, right? The Supreme Court defines it as one consisting of the recital of facts constituting the offense charged and determinative of the jurisdiction of the court. Simply put, if an amendment changes the core nature of the crime, alters the prosecution's theory, or surprises the defense so much that their original strategy no longer works, it's substantial. If it doesn't do those things, it's merely formal. All right, moving to Section 2, the facts. The tragic case of Maureen Hultman. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because this case stems from a deeply tragic incident. First, the prosecution filed an information charging Claudio Teehankee Jr. with frustrated murder. He's arraigned and pleads not guilty. But then, a supervening event occurs. The victim, Maureen Hultman, tragically succumbs to her injuries and passes away. Because of this, the prosecution moves to amend the information, upgrading the charge from frustrated to consummated murder. Immediately, the defense objects. They argue this isn't just a simple edit. They claim it's an improper substitution. To really grasp the defense's strategy here, we have to look closely at their argument. They claimed that moving from frustrated to consummated murder introduced a massive new fact, the fact of death itself. They argued that because they now had to establish the actual cause of death, which honestly could theoretically be due to a supervening act, like medical malpractice, the charge was fundamentally different. Treating it as a substitution, the defense flat out refused to be arraigned on the amended charge without getting the benefit of a brand new preliminary investigation. Ultimately, the trial court admitted the amended information anyway, and the defense rushed straight to the Supreme Court. Which brings us to Section 3, the issue. Was this a valid amendment or an improper substitution? Did changing the charge from frustrated to consummated murder constitute a valid formal amendment or an improper substitution of the information? Now, think about how you would rule if you were the judge. Based on the doctrine we just discussed, formulate your own answer before we reveal what the court said. Okay, Section 4, the ruling. Let's see what the Supreme Court decides. So, the crucial point is the Supreme Court ruled against the defense. The change was a valid formal amendment, not a substitution. Why? Well, because the core identity of the crime remained exactly the same. The nature of the offense did not change at all. Whether frustrated or consummated, it's still murder. The court pointed out that frustrated murder is simply a stage in the execution of the crime of murder. The prosecution's core theory, which is the intent to kill, remained absolutely identical in both informations. The court went on to explain that the supervening fact of death was added merely to aid the trial court in determining the proper penalty. It didn't change the actual act the accused allegedly committed. Remember earlier when we talked about the true test of prejudice for an amendment? The test is whether the defense's original strategy would still work. The court noted that whatever defense Teehankee was going to use against the frustrated murder charge was equally applicable to the consummated murder charge. His rights were perfectly intact. Therefore, because it was only a formal amendment, no new preliminary investigation was required. Now, what's really interesting here is the exact phrasing used by the Supreme Court. What is involved here is not a variance in the nature of different offenses charged, but only a change in the stage of execution of the same offense. You guys, burn this quote into your memory. Highlight it, underline it, star it in your notes. When you're writing your bar exams and a question about upgrading a charge due to a supervening event pops up, this is literally the golden ticket phrase that will get you full points. We've seen how the Supreme Court balances the efficiency of the trial process with the rights of the accused, but I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. How does this strict distinction between formal amendment and substitution impact the strategic moves a defense lawyer can make in an ongoing, evolving trial? I mean, if the prosecution can upgrade a charge based on a supervening event without a new investigation, how must a defense attorney anticipate and prepare for the absolute worst-case scenario right from day one? It's pretty fascinating to think about how these procedural rules dictate real-world courtroom chess matches. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep studying hard, and I will see you next time.